G'day and Sweaty Carb. Well, today, mate, you've had such an unbelievably infectious tale to tell today. The tale of TB or not to be, and the fight against TB. So take us back, just give us a little snippet. In the old days, TB was a serious and horrible problem. Scrofula, back in Shakespearean times.
Indeed, TB doesn't affect just the lungs. It can affect many parts of the body's. Lymph glands gave rise to ulcerations, especially in the neck and the face, which used to be called scrofula. The old, from medieval times. This was TB of the lymph. TB can also affect the bones. It can cause curvature of the spine. It can also affect muscles in the body. Most TB cases are pulmonary in the lungs. That's not the only way.
And when I was younger, they used to have like TB checking stations that would go out and x-ray people. But this isn't really a very good diagnosis.
It isn't, but TB is useful for screening people.
You mean the x-rays?
The x-rays. So screening people on the TB x-ray vans was good. It could identify there was a problem. Wasn't certain it was TB. There was a problem which could then be referred for more detailed study, more detailed diagnosis. So that was useful at the time. The rate of TB since that time is much less, and it's no longer considered cost-effective to undertake mass screenings.
And of course, somebody, as you pointed out, fascinatingly, there was a percentage of people in there who almost certainly had latent TB and didn't know it. And in fact, you are one of these people, right?
I am one of the people with latent TB, particularly among elderly Brits who drank fresh milk. That time, cow herds in the UK and across Europe were not TB tested, and pasteurisation wasn't always carried out on fresh milk. So ingestion of milk could give rise to a form of TB. Usually the immune system was strong and the body locked it away as latent TB. Each year in the UK there are a few cases of elderly Brits who get TB from their youth. It re-emerges when their immune system becomes vastly weakened. It's not anything to worry about. The body's immune system is strong. It locks the TB away. It's not likely to become a problem.
So, and TB was all on the big decline, but then in the 1990s, bang, a few different problems came together once to create a comparative explosion in TB rates.
It did. It really made a massive change. So years of gradual decline. We had a triple whammy in the 90s. There was the neglect of public health programs, so TB control programs were in decline. There was the advent of HIV/AIDS, so suddenly people have reduced immune systems, weakened immune systems, more likely to contract TB. At the same time was the rise of multiple drug-resistant TB. The drugs that we had available were no longer so effective. Three things together gave rise to this increase. So after years of decrease, we then saw a large increase in TB.
Most countries have started to really turn it around since then.
It has. I would say most countries have turned that around, and generally TB is on the decline again. But it's taken a massive amount of funding and really quite massive efforts to achieve that.
And this has been one of the things you've been actively involved in, is how to get funding to fight all these tropical diseases, right?
Indeed. I sometimes think I spend half my life scrounging for money, writing proposals and funding documents to try and get money for programs to address neglected tropical diseases. HIV, TB, malaria had a big turnaround with the advent of the Global Fund. Suddenly $14 billion per year going into those three diseases. That turned them around, but we still have a hard core of neglected tropical diseases like dengue to still get turned around.
So it's gone from 22 of neglected diseases, tropical diseases, now it's down to what?
We reckon 13 now. So from 22 originally identified, most of those now have managed to achieve a reasonable level of funding. They're no longer neglected. They're still tropical diseases. They still need addressing, but there is funding available for them. We still have a hard core of around 13 that still need to be addressed.
And what do you think is the number one that still needs to be addressed?
Everyone has got their own little subject. For me, it would be leprosy, but okay.
So there you go. And it's always a delight having Andy here to give talks. He's incredibly thorough, definitive. He's been at the cutting edge against these sorts of fights. So have a look at the talk. Have a look at his old wonderful talk on dengue fever from a few months back. Really electrifying. So of course we'll hope you'll come back and enlighten us about perhaps malaria next time. And meanwhile, thank you from Renlex Sander and the PCEC and you too might have TB. But fortunately, the programs here and elsewhere in Thailand are actually very good now.
They are very good. Screening is very good. If you have persistent coughing for more than 3 weeks, go and see a medical professional. It's very unlikely to be TB, but better to get it screened and ruled out.
Because there's still, how many people dying annually from it?
In Thailand, around 6,000-7,000 per year. There are around 100,000 cases per year. So it's not a very common disease, but it is there. It does need treatment. Don't neglect it. Go and get checked. Very low probability that you've got TB, but it's worth being checked and ruling it out.
So there's the last word from Dr. Andy. And meanwhile, we'll see you back here next week at Pattaya City Expat Club.